G'day, Steve Morgan here, Fishing Monthly Magazine's ABT, and we are in the office for one more Friday before we hit the road again for Tasmania and the Great Tasmanian Road Trip. If you don't know, I've left my car and my boat in Victoria, and particularly in Melbourne, after the Victorian road trip for the Brim and the Bass. Mario Vukic, thanks for looking after my boat. I know it's getting some extra special love and care and attention in your courtyard there. And my car is sitting at the long-term car park at the airport, and next Friday, we're flying down, picking that up, assembling the rig and getting on the Great Spirit of Tasmania. So when we're in Tasmania, 5 events we're being involved with. 2 of those are run by Hobie Fishing. They're 2 Tasmanian kayak events on 2 really, really cool arenas. One is called Little Swan Port, which is like a little saltwater lake with racks and flats and plenty of weed in it, on the east coast of Tassie. And then on the other side of Swansea, the closest town, there's a river called the Swan River, much larger arena, much bigger population of big brim, and there's an event there as well. Now, in between those 2 events, we're sneaking down to the Huon River, which is the biggest river south of Hobart, to assess that for a future ABT venue. We're running a free tournament there sponsored by Duo. Everyone gets plenty of baits. We looked at some of those in last week's Tackle Fridays. And we're just seeing how many big brim we can catch from what places, and we assume it is a really good ABT venue, but we're just doing our double checking before we do that again in 2026. We go to Tasmania every second year. So a lot of preparation. Most of my gear's in the boat down there, but the last little snippets are coming in at the moment. And I've got a few of those today. I did a post a bit earlier in the week about what my favourite Tassie colours are and things. And this, of course, I think this is my favourite Tassie colour of all. It's any Daiwa jerkbait in that Kawamutu colour. Kawamutu. It's a chrome with an olive back and a couple of grey line, a black line or 2 down it. So I'll show it to you up nice and close. They used to make this colour in the Presso minnow. I don't think they make it anymore in the Presso. I might not have any of those left. But this, the double clutch 60, with that sliding weight on the inside, casts a mile. Doesn't go too deep because it hasn't got the super big, like 75mm double clutch bib on it. But I've stocked up on 4 more of those just so that I've got enough of the good gear for Tassie. So 4 of those double clutch 60s in Kawamutu. They come with those the Saxas Daiwa trebles on. They're like the Teflon coated trebles, ultra fine. You might break 1 or 2 on a big brim, but man, everything that hits these lures stays hit. So double clutches are great. I'm stocked up with all like the 44s, the 60s I'm good with now, the 75s I've got plenty of. So that was just filling a gap, that one there. I did see this and I had to get one of these. This is the shallow diving double clutch. You know, it's sort of weird saying a double clutch is a shallow diver, because for me they've always been a deep diving lure that as it bangs the bottom and pauses, that's when you get your fish on them. So this is the shallow diving version. To me, it's got all of the ingredients of what you want in a Tassie lure. It's slim, like those Derwent River bait fish. It's got some chrome in it. This is one of the Adele finishes, which is like a foil hologram style finish. So it looks subtle, but a bit of flash in it. And you can tell by this lure here, love my chrome. The Tassie blacks are not afraid of chrome at all. So the shallow running double clutch, one of those is packed in there. Last time I went to Tassie, these things didn't exist. These are the Daiwa Sazanamis, or as Tommy Wood calls them, Sazanamis. He yells that out as he goes black brim fishing. Bit of a weird lad. But again, look at the themes and the colours that I choose. Always have to have a little bit of chrome in them, and otherwise natural accents. So I don't really, even if you scraped all the beige or the browns off that and just left the chrome, I reckon the fish would eat them. No worries at all. Both of those are that hologrammatic finish, the Sazanami ones. That's an AU colour, that one there. And that one there is the rice fish. I think we saw those colours the first time in the After Trade show last year. Tucker's been doing some great work putting those things together. So got some Sazas. They will work both at St Helens and the Derwent, and I'm pretty sure at the Huon, and I'm pretty sure everywhere else we go. So I've got 8 of those because I like fishing them on 2-pound line, and I don't want to run out of them. The other things that were in the box from Daiwa, a couple of their latest hats. Always love a Daiwa cap. They fit really well. We'll wear these into live streams when they're appropriate. That with a buck and bass buff over the top keeps the sun right off you. These stay on your head pretty well when you're kicking around. But I've had one of these before in the brown, but I've never seen one of the blue ones there. So I think you can buy the Daiwa merch off the Daiwa website straight from them or from your Daiwa dealer. Thank you guys at Daiwa for shooting those around. Now, second part, Tackle Fridays. There's a little bit of clean up at the back, and one day we'll do a full tour of the Tackle Junkie room. It's just a mess at the moment, so we're not going there at the moment. But I did find a handful of old baits that had won tournaments before, and I sort of archived them and put them away, the original baits that actually win tournaments. And as I was flicking through them, I thought, man, nothing much changes. Andrew Deeth put up a podcast from one of the first Hobie Worlds that Chris Hickson and I got up and gave a talk on what styles of lures we use and what styles we use for brim fishing, and that was like 15 years ago. Guess what? Nothing much has changed, and I can prove it by looking at this. Let's have a look through. Where's the oldest one I can find? Here's something here. When I won my first ever Bass Pro event at Glenbourne, it was on that. It was a TT jig head and an atomic paddle tail in sort of that browny natural colour there. This is the original one. It caught big bass for the tournament of about 1.6 something kilos. It was the skinniest big bass ever. It's still the original tail there and that lure there. But man, nothing much has changed. I look at the guys nowadays and they are still throwing paddle tails on jig heads for bass. So obviously it's a staple. Works pretty well. Let's go to the first time I was in Tassie. What did I find here? The very first Tassie event in 2006. Interesting, I'm packing jerk baits for Tassie now, but in the very first iteration of the Tassie event, I think my very first Tasmanian black brim came on this lure. And in the tournament in 2006, I caught about a 6.3 or 6.4 kilo bag on this lure, which is the black clear Eco Gear SX40. That's the exact lure I caught them on, and a gulp on a 1/4 ounce jig head, a really big jig head, heavy jig head. I think it was reflecting the fact that the Tassie brim were pretty uneducated, and if you weren't averaging about 1.2 kilos of fish, you weren't going to be up there. So this was particularly effective around all the mussel beds in the shallow water. Man, we caught the hell out of the fish in those early years. 2006, the average size of brim we caught in the tournament was 1.03 kilos. I remember Simo once got 10 fish for 10 kilos in a Tassie tournament and didn't get in the top 10. And there was only like 20 people there. So hopefully it'll be fishing that good again this year. Let's fast forward to where we got 2009 here. I won a Tweed River event on these lures here. Now that's, again, a Eco Gear SX40 and a combination of the two ZX and VX Eco Gear blades. It's crankbaits and blades. They're very very consistent. But this is one of the original ones, and I know that in that mid to late 2000s when Eco Gear brought out the little blades, and all of the other manufacturers' improvements on those blades come out since. But there's a really old ZX blade there with half the paint all worn off it from that Tweed event. Interestingly, that event I was throwing the blades right up near the bank and sort of popping them off in a fast current situation. I wasn't fishing them in deep water, probably 2 or 3 foot of water they were landing in. They were getting bitten in 4 to 5 feet of water, but those really small black blades, used them then, still use them a fair bit today. And of course the SX40 for yellowfins, love that those natural looking bait fish colours. That one there, I think there was one called Atari Special, and this was like a Foster Special. I think the bait fish coloured SX40s were. If you look at my tackle boxes, I still take 50 SX40s out with me in the boat in all the different colours available. Probably could catch every fish in Australia on that colour there if you only wanted to take one colour. So there you go. That's another 15 years old, nearly, that one there. Found this one here. This is the Brim Grand Final in 2009 in Sydney. I'd never fished Grand Finals until then. Always had to work during them, but I should have given up Grand Finals after the first one in Sydney, because the first one I fished, I came first in it and never threatened one ever since. But for me, it was all about the crankbaits, that one. It was all about cranking bridges, and there's the original 2009 Ghost Gill Brown Atomic. And funny, we're still throwing those, and that was a Dan Stead pimped coloured one. He called it GF 2009, that colour. So funny, I won the Tweed a year or two ago on exactly the same sort of coloured lures. They still work in the brim scene. Those translucent natural colours work really well for the yellowfin brim. So there's a bit of history we've got there. What else have I got? From 2010, back when the Australian Open was a teams tournament. There's the Australian Open, a couple of the Australian Open winning lures. a stick minnow. Well, we're still throwing those today, aren't we? And of course that atomic crank again. That was another Danstead pimp colour. We would have used more colours than just these ones, but these were a couple that I grabbed after the tournament to put away. I was fishing with my brother Tim in that one when it was a teams tournament, and there's one of Danstead's pimped atomics there, and of course the stick minnow. Again, this is another Danstead pimp one. We had a big thing at the time. Dan would take all of our crap colour lures and he would paint them decent colours. This one he even stuck the little scales on, so it sort of looked like a Lucky Craft with those intermittent scales on there. Dan, if you want to make me more of those, I would definitely throw them, even though it looks very laborious to get it done. So, still using those baits today. Let's have a look at Barby Island. It's not rocket science all this. Back then I was a big crankbait guy. A lot of people are throwing, they were throwing plastics a lot, but not me. I was throwing the atomic crank still. And again, look at that. We've got a couple of versions. One, the old Ghost Gill Brown, and this one is nearly had all of the paint chewed off it. That one, I remember I was fishing with Troy White from Min Repairs, and we must have had a 30 or 40 fish day up in the canals. And there's another version where we've just added a couple of the UV eyes on that same type lure. So again, that was the first time, well, the only time I ever won the Barby Island tournament. Very crap at winning tournaments in Queensland. I think Barby Island is probably the only Brim tournament I've ever won in Queensland. Don't ask me why, just crap at my local waters. Let's go to Brim Megabucks in Foster. This is the only time Timmy and I fished that teams event. Only time I'd ever won a Megabucks. I don't think we won any session, but we came good enough to win the event overall. And it was a switchbait pattern. And guess what features again? Stick minnow. That one pimped by Danstead in the baitfish colours, and the Dog X in that colour, that yellow colour. I can't remember exactly what it's called. It'll come to me. But we would tease them up on this bait, and if they wouldn't belt that bait, if they were boiling on it, you'd throw that on 2-pound line straight behind them, and they would clean up that sinking lure. You can do that in a teams event. Nowadays, if the boat is throwing this, getting boils on it, they don't ask the non-boater to throw those things in. Maybe they should. Maybe you can have turns on the top order. Or maybe calmer will just mean the next time you throw that top order, a big brim will jump on it. So still using those baits today. Used that one at Bakuda a couple of years ago. Even threw it a little bit this year, actually, when I was down the front trying to catch yellowfins. And the stick minnow, of course, throw them nearly every event. And the last one from St Helens in Tassie. This is from 2016. I don't have the Z-Man grub. This is one of the very few tournaments that well on plastics with. But it was, as the tide was coming up, fished this Lucky Craft humpback minnow. And this is from EJ Todd's, one of the great ABT sponsors. The humpback's a real small shallow diving jerkbait. Again, in that sort of 2-inch sort of shot, that 40mm to 50mm size. Shallow diving, got those lovely scale patterns on the edge of it. I would fish that until the water got up in the racks, and in the racks I'd throw a Z-Man motor or grub with a really light jig head in it. And that is a staple for nearly all the people fishing plastics nowadays at ABT. So, hope you enjoyed that bit of history. That's Tackle Fridays for today. We are busy packing for Tassie. It's only a week until we go. We're writing up all the old ABT reports to go in the magazine. When I say old, the two Brim and the two Bass from earlier in the month, they're all going through the system at the moment. Shot a few boat tests in Victoria. We're busy editing that. Got a lot of homework to do before we get on the road. And, we're in the office working hard. Well, at least I'm working hard, because I'm going to flip it around here. Oh, someone just jumped off the chair. I thought you were having a snooze in there, Nicole. Busted. Having a snooze. Having a laugh. It's Tackle Fridays. Catch you next week.